The new moon in Cancer is an incredibly potent time to connect to the divine feminine and goddess wisdom. It's a sacred lunar event which calls you to slow down and to connect with yourself, your intuition, and with your body. Hello, I am Luna Seranova. This is the new moon. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to my channel. Excited to be here. I think this new moon is going to be so cool. I'm really personally excited about it, so I'm really pumped to tell you guys all about kind of the vibe of the new moon, what's going to happen, and I'm also going to offer you guys some tarot prompts, journal prompts, and a couple of ritual ideas if you're feeling a little low energy and you just kind of want me to tell you something to do. A quick breakdown of what the new moon is. So the new moon is this beginning of the next lunar cycle. So this is the time to plant those seeds, set your intentions. It's kind of like the beginning, it's like the new year essentially for the month, for the lunar cycle. So what do you want to achieve this next lunar cycle from this new moon to the full moon and until the next new moon? All about planting seeds, all about beginnings, all about manifesting, and really planning for what we want to manifest, right? So it's a great time to begin new things. It's a great time to cleanse. I always love cleansing my space, physically cleaning my altar, cleaning up incense that's been left out, changing your sheets and putting some intention into it, just really refreshing. And I think I love the new moon more than the full moon. I don't know if I can say that. That might be controversial. I just love new beginnings. I love starting fresh. I just think it's so refreshing and it makes you feel so hopeful, and I really love the new moons for that. So it's a great time to start fresh and to start new and to set intentions. So happy Cancer season. We're in Cancer season, and we know this because we're at least aware of the astrology, but also a fun little thing to remember is that the Cancer new moon is always going to happen in Cancer season. There might be an exception, maybe here and there, but I'm like 90% sure that the Cancer new moon always happens in Cancer season, because essentially, astronomically, what's happening with a new moon is that the moon and the sun are perfectly aligned, and that's why it's dark. So that's why we don't see anything, because it's like, you know what I'm saying? So this is why we see, if we're looking specifically at the chart, like the new moon will be in 6 degrees of Cancer and the sun is also in 6 degrees of Cancer, and that's why it's dark. Whereas on a full moon, opposite of each other, that's why the moon's fully illuminated. So the full moon will be in Capricorn when the sun is in Cancer. Fun little tidbit. That's the astronomical vibes of it. So the new moon in Cancer will happen on a different date every year, so you can watch this video at any point in the future. But if you're watching in 2024, the new moon in Cancer is happening on July 5th at 3:57 p.m. Eastern, which is 6:57 p.m. I messed that up. 3:57 p.m. Pacific time, which is 6:57 p.m. Eastern. So that's the vibe. And for all you time travelers, all of you in 2025, 2026, whenever in the future, I will list a date and time for future full moons, probably for the next 5 or 10 years. We'll see what energy I'm feeling when I'm in the editing phase of this. Hi, time traveler, if you're from the future, how's it going? Does it get better? Does it get better out there? Some energy of Cancer, and I will have linked in the description a whole video that I do on Cancer season. I highly recommend watching that if you want to tap into the energy this month. But Cancer is a water sign, very emotional, very intuitive, very sensitive, very much flowy. It's considered cardinal, which is kind of like the go-getter modalities. So every sign in the zodiac has a modality, either mutable, fixed, or cardinal, and that kind of colors the energetic expression of that sign. So Cancer falls with cardinal. Also Aries, Libra, and Capricorn fall into a cardinal modality as well, and these are the guys who are gonna be bam, 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 I'm gonna go get what I want. Active energy, which is kind of interesting to see in a water sign. There's kind of this like duality within Cancer that I think a lot of times in pop astrology, and I've been guilty of this too, we see Cancer described as kind of a softie, kind of like an emotional, sometimes they get called a crybaby, which isn't very nice. Don't call people that. But they really get acknowledged for that watery emotional side of them. And I think this happens with Libra too in a different way, where people are like, oh, Libra, they're just so indifferent, blah, 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 blah. But they have that cardinal modality. So even though in Libra's case, they're very like judicial and very like justice oriented, kind of indifferent, they're still very passionate about what they believe in. Same with Cancer. And with Cancer being ruled by the 4th house, the house of the home, the inner life, the maternal, the childhood, Cancer gets very, sometimes aggressive, very, I don't know a good way to explain it. It's very aggressive, very, kind of grab it by the reins kind of energy in terms of like the family. So these people are typically very protective. They're represented by the crab. So Cancer, this energy has a very like mushy interior, but a very hard exterior, okay? We see this a lot more with natal Cancer men because, I mean, a lot of them in our society are told that emotions are bad and they're feeling so much, so that outer shell gets a lot more thick and a lot more like protective of the self, of the emotions. So interesting. We love to see it. A lot of those themes might come up this new moon and this Cancer season in general. So like I said, ruled by the 4th house. This is the house of the family, the inner life, the childhood trauma, the maternal, our relationship with the mother or a maternal figure. And Cancer is also ruled by the moon. So that's why this moon is so interesting, okay? Anytime we have a Cancer moon, whether it's whatever phase, you know, it's a bit more intense. But particularly with the new moon, the full moon, because those are more amplified times, in my opinion. So let's get into that energy. This Cancer new moon, and if you see me looking over here, I'm looking at my notes so I don't go too crazy and get too off the rails. But this is an incredibly emotional, intuitive, spiritual kind of time because the moon is in domicile. Now, what the fuck does that mean, Luna? It means her home. So the moon is in her home in Cancer. So each astrological sign is ruled by a planet. In astrology, we do consider the sun and the moon planets. They're luminaries, we call them planets, it's whatever, it is what it is. And when a planet moves into the sign that it rules, the energy becomes incredibly potent. So we see that with this new moon, right? The moon is entering Cancer, which is the sign she rules. So this is Barbie in her Barbie dream house, okay? We are at home. So because we're at home with this situation, the energy flows a lot more freely, a lot more, generally like harmoniously. I mean, you know, when you're at home, you're comfortable, you feel good. Cancer loves to be at home, right? So the energy is moving freely, it's moving authentically. You know, it's not feeling weird about where it's at, if that makes sense. Whereas if the moon was in Aquarius, for example, the energy would be a bit more difficult. So because of this, we'll feel those traditional archetypes of the moon and Cancer so much more so. So what are these potent lunar vibes I keep talking about? So we'll likely be feeling highly intuitive, highly empathetic, sensitive, emotional, in need of connection with others, and a desire to nurture and be nurtured. So like I said, Cancer's ruled by the crab. So even though it's a very emotional sign, it can be a little dramatic, depending. Like if you piss off Cancer, drama will ensue. So I do feel like I should mention the shadow side of Cancer, because we can see, you know, shadow side elements coming up with every lunar situation. So some of the shadow sides of Cancer, it can be kind of defensive, it can be moody, it can be petty, manipulative. Not saying all Cancers are that, but we all get a little problematic sometimes, right? We all kind of, you know, when tested, will lean into the shadow side of the archetype of our sign. And as we are all experiencing this Cancer new moon, like, there's a chance that the shadow elements will come up. Just better to be aware than not aware. And not everybody is going to feel it as intensely, okay? Because it depends on your natal birth chart. The intensity of the moon and the area of your life that will be most affected fully depends on your personal astrological birth chart in relation to Cancer. So all of that can be uncovered by looking at your birth chart. So I want you to look at your birth chart wheel, and no, babe, not CoStar. I love you, CoStar girlies out there. I love you, but CoStar is not going to give us what we need for this. You need to have the physical wheel. So you can find that on astro.com pretty easily. I recommend getting a natal chart reading done if you're very, very new. It can be really informative, just like a beginner birth chart kind of anatomy reading, to let you know like what's going on, where everything is, because it can be very confusing in the beginning when you're new to it. So if you find astrology both fascinating and absolutely fucking confusing, a professional astrologer can help you uncover that language and translate it in an everyday sort of way that will make sense beyond the symbols and the crazy colored lines and everything like that. So find where Cancer is in your birth chart. Cancer is represented by this symbol that looks like 69. Let's go. We love to see it. Find out where it is and find out which house it occupies. So I'm gonna use Lana Del Rey's chart as an example because she's a Cancer queen. We love to see it. And this, looking at which house Cancer is in, will show you where the moon will be transiting in your chart, and that will show you which area of life is going to be illuminated over this next lunation or lunar cycle in your life. I think it just thundered. I'm so sorry, y'all. I think it just thundered. I'm so excited. I am so excited. Okay, so back, this is why I wrote the script. Stay to the script, Luna. Stay to the script. So also, just so you know, the house that Cancer is in might shift depending on if you're looking at whole sign or Placidus. If that makes no sense to you, literally don't worry. This is why I recommend getting a professional astrologer to look at it, because it can be confusing. There's a lot that goes into astrology, but you can just take both into account and take what resonates the most, because there's validity to both whole sign and Placidus. And at the end of the day, the whole point of all of this is just to take what resonates and find deeper self-actualization. So for example, Lana Del Rey has Cancer in her 8th house. So the new moon will be hanging out with her natal Sun, Mars, and Mercury. So this seems like, if I was her astrologer, I would tell her that it seems like this new moon could definitely be about personal transformation, connecting to more authentic ways of communicating and creative expression. And it could definitely be an emotional time. I would tell her that this new moon will probably feel very activating and transformative, as well as potentially intense. So I would be like, hey girl, take it easy, listen to your body, listen to your needs, and check in with yourself periodically. Whereas if somebody had Cancer in their 4th house, you know, this would be a more introspective time of reconnecting to safety and security within their roots, within their home, finding a new home or making their current home a bit more homey, nurturing, loving, supportive, things like that. With a 4th house Cancer new moon transiting their natal chart, you could definitely see some childhood wounds come up. You could kind of need to tend to your inner child more. Whereas if somebody had Cancer in their 10th house, you know, I would say really put your whole heart and creativity into your career. Whatever professional or very public project you have going on, it could be really benefited by putting a lot of authenticity and emotion and heart and just soul behind it. So I know that was a lot. So if you're new to astrology, that can feel really confusing. So just take it slow. The general attributes of this new moon will be present for everybody. Again, it's just if you want to get really specific looking at your birth chart, but if that's not accessible to you right now, you're fine. Just listen to the basic, you know, vibe of this new moon. It is straight up thundering. I am so excited. It's 100 degrees outside and has been so summer, and I've been craving a gloomy day. So the fact that it's thundering is just so healing. I love the rain. I don't know, comment below if you're like that. I'm not a summer girly. I love the rain. I think living in the Pacific Northwest would be the dream. If you do want to learn more about your natal birth chart for times like this, and for personal development, I currently offer 2 astrology readings on my website. One is very much like beginner intro friendly. It's great for beginners who want to get to know their chart and specifically what stands out about their personal chart. So like what makes you magnetic, what makes you beautiful, your strengths, your uniqueness. So it's very, very, very accessible for those who are brand new or maybe have been a co-star girly for a while and don't like fully understand the natal birth chart wheel and want to. So it's great for those who want to fully understand the basics of their chart in addition to the really special parts, the really unique parts of their chart. I also offer a fully comprehensive reading. This one's like the big boy, the big intense one. Okay, it's like a whole hour and a half and we really go deep into everything. So I would say get that if you are very familiar with the chart and you want to dive deeper. But I would not recommend that one for a beginner because it can be really confusing and it's like a lot of information. But I'll have both of those linked down below if you are interested. Thanks. The first area for growth I really want to talk about today is the divine feminine and the goddess. I have so many videos on the divine feminine, on the goddess. This is kind of like my area of expertise, so I talk about it a lot. But Cancer, and I'll have those linked below, but Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is often represented by the goddess, right? It's sort of, the moon is sort of this high priestess of the planets. And so we're really going to connect to the sacred priestess energy with this new moon. So some questions I would give you for journal prompts is, how can you be more still? How can you be more open to your intuition? How can you trust yourself more? These are all things that the divine feminine really represents, this ability to listen to yourself and to trust yourself, having that kind of sovereignty. You don't need to ask somebody else because you have this innate wisdom inside of you. The divine feminine and the goddess are not about being submissive, okay? I know the trad wives on TikTok will tell you otherwise. That is no. That is not what we're about. That is not what the divine feminine is about. Every time I see one of those TikToks, I hold it back. I say, you know, calm down, all that Aries energy. You're not gonna get in a TikTok fight today. It is so upsetting because it's so antithetical to what the divine feminine truly is. And it is just kind of like repackaged, repurposed Christianity. The divine feminine is not submissive. The divine feminine is rooted in her strength of her intuition. She's receptive rather than projective. Now, what that means is she doesn't have to push and go out in search of answers. She sits still and tunes into her body and what she already knows because the answers are within herself. So that's why we say receptive. It's not a lesser than, it's not a submissive to a man or to anybody, right? It is literally like this intense personal power that is rooted within. There's no need to go out in search of. It is literally within you. You just have to quiet your mind, which is hard to do, and connect to your intuition. Tuning into yourself, tuning into your body, right? That's hard in today's world that is so like toxic, especially perpetuating like toxic masculinity and stuff. We are so pulled out of our bodies. So it is a task. It's not a one and done, you know, it's not easy by any means, but you will see progress if you make it a part of your routine, and this can be a great time to really get into it and start healing that or continue healing that divine feminine. We really do live in a society that encourages you to seek out the opinions of others and you know, block out your own intuition. And of course, like listening to experts and you know, getting advice is really good, but you also need to be able to make decisions yourself and be really rooted in your intuition and trust yourself and not doubt yourself. Oh my God, the amount of times that like we have this intuition and then we gaslight ourselves, you know, into being like, that doesn't make sense, or that's not right, or blah, 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 blah. And then we find out it's true, right? And I think we've all been there, really working on that practice. Asking yourself those questions that I had mentioned. How can you be more still? How can you be more open to your intuition? How can you trust yourself more? A ritual idea I have for specifically this area of growth is to take a ritual bath. Very Cancerian. Do you guys hear the thunder? I love it. And ponder your intuition. Ponder your relationship to your intuition. What's currently blocking you? Do you often second guess your intuition to later find out that you were right? where do you feel intuition in your body? This is something that was super helpful for me, or also for me, just a little piece of advice that's been really super helpful is to intuition versus anxiety, right? That can be really hard to differentiate. A lot of people feel those in different places, which is beautiful and great. For me, what I tend to work with is, how did that thought come about? Was it out of nowhere, or kind of was it like a train of thoughts, like oh, someone said this thing, oh, maybe they're upset at me, and then like I think they're upset at me. Is that intuition, or is that an anxiety spiral? For me, that's how my anxiety works, and I know a lot of people struggle with like impulsive thoughts and stuff like that, and so this might not work for you if you have like intrusive or impulsive thoughts come through. For me, this has been really easy to see, oh, is that my intuition? Did it come out of nowhere, or was it triggered by something that happened or something I saw, and did I follow an anxiety spiral? Because for me, intuition is kind of independent. It comes up. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a feeling or a knowing rather than a anxiety loop. Does that make sense? I hope so. The second area for growth this new moon is the inner nurturer. We love this. So Cancer rules the 4th house. This is the house of the inner life and the home, as I said. Cancer also traditionally is connected to the mother or any maternally parental figure that you might have had or seen growing up. So it's a really good time to work with your inner parent talk and your inner child. Really making sure, because we have both our inner child and an inner parent within us. Those archetypes will come through, and sometimes we're not necessarily brought up to have the most supportive inner parent that we could. So really tuning into what did you need as a child and what do you need now, and treating yourself that way, because we do have an inner child that is within all of us. And I know for me, for example, like when I get sick, like if I'm not feeling too good, in the past I would have really perpetuated like a very productivity focused discipline of my inner child of like, okay, I get that you don't feel good, but we have work to do, you need to be productive, blah, 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 which I would never say to a child, right? And I think we see that with a lot of how our inner parent talks to our inner child. It's not on purpose, it's just how we've been programmed through society. So for me, it's like, I had to recognize like, what would I do for a child, right? When I'm feeling sick, it is on me. It is now my responsibility as an adult, as somebody who has this inner parent who is nurturing my inner child. It is my responsibility to say, okay, girlfriend, we're gonna be respectful. We're gonna be like nurturing to ourselves. So we're gonna go make some soup, and we're gonna put on our favorite Netflix show or whatever, right? We're gonna watch our favorite YouTubers. We're gonna get cozy, and we're gonna take the day off, because at the end of the day, work can wait, and if you push yourself, it's just gonna get worse. So really nurturing yourself and really, viewing yourself through this lens of an inner child. How would you talk to a child? How did you need to be talked to and maybe you weren't, or treated and maybe you weren't? And this is a lot of conscious effort, and I'm not saying like this is something that you'll just magically do on the new moon and it'll be great, but it's a good time to really look at this relationship with the inner parent and the inner child. It's a really good time to think about that, think about how it shows up, and just, it's a new moon, so it's a new cycle. So start that awareness of this inner parent, inner child dynamic within your consciousness. This also, and something I've struggled with more recently, is also disciplining your inner child. So when you do have work to do and you are procrastinating, how can you really set those like, okay, you need to start work at 8, or you need to start work at blah, 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 or you need to get this thing done today. And you can't have a treat, or you can't play with your toys, if that's painting or whatever, until you've done this thing, because this needs to get done. So discipline, but in a loving way, because I think discipline has like some really negative connotations. I think we see a lot of like really unhealthy and toxic discipline in our society, and so it's all about learning how to discipline in a healthy way. So both nurturing and discipline. Discipline's a bit more Capricorn energy. Cancer is a bit more nurturing and protective. So the disciplinary stuff might come more with the Capricorn full moon, blah, 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 whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, but starting this relationship of the inner child and the inner parent. So a ritual idea that you can do to connect this inner parent, inner child dynamic is to do a creative or playful activity that you loved as a child, and spend time over the next lunar cycle noticing how you talk to yourself and remembering that your inner child is listening. So when you're sick, do you do what I used to do and push yourself to be productive? How would your dream parent treat you if you were sick? So for me, that was like, let's make a soup, let's chill in bed, right? So treat yourself that way. I have a couple little things to finish us out. Some crystals, if you're a crystal babe, that represent the Cancer new moon really well. Blue lace agate is one of my favorite crystals, and it's so good for just like tranquility, calming. I hold it like if I'm in therapy and like it's gonna be a big call that day, you know, it just feels like really nurturing and very cooling and calming. Clear quartz is great for anything to be amplified, so whatever you're trying to connect to over this new moon cycle, whatever you're trying to amplify, clear quartz is there for you. Amethyst is great for connecting to that intuition, so if you're really wanting to tune into that spirituality, that intuition, that spiritual expansion, maybe dream work and stuff like that, amethyst is the way to go. And lastly, moonstone or rainbow moonstone, of course. This is kind of a mixture of that intuitive crystal and also like sacred divine feminine goddess energy kind of energy. So it's a really good crystal to work with this new moon. I have a tarot spread for you. It's a 4-card spread to represent the numerology of Cancer. The first card represents how have I disconnected myself from my intuition. The second card represents how can I connect to the divine feminine more this lunar cycle. The third card represents what can I expect from this new moon. And the fourth card represents how can I best use my energy this lunar cycle. Love to see it. And a couple of journal prompts to send you off with. Here we go. What does my ideal version of an inner parent look like? What do I wish I had as a child? How can I give that to myself now in the most loving and accepting way possible? What is my relationship to the divine feminine, the goddess? What do those words bring up in me? And lastly, how can I deepen my relationship to my intuition? How can I trust it more? So that's what I've got for y'all today. I hope you enjoy. I hope that was helpful. I think this new moon's gonna be great and beautiful. Even if you just freaking chill this new moon, that's fine. Because again, new moon in Cancer can feel, you can be a little bit more tired or a little bit more slow. So if you're not, the new moon's never time to check off all these to-dos, right? It's never, I don't want any of you to feel like every astrological event is like, I have to do these 3 things to celebrate. Do what you can, do what you want to do what feels right. At the end of the day, we're not in that toxic productivity. We're not going to be in that. So don't put pressure on yourself to get everything done, blah, 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 blah. Do what feels right, do what feels good, do what you need to do, and just have fun. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. Again, I'll have my astrological readings down below. If you want to join my moon coven to hang out with some super cute witches who get together every full moon and celebrate, and also just have a good time throughout the month with book club, exclusive content, and a super fun Discord, I'll have that linked down below as well. It's super fun, and I've got tiers ranging from $5 to $20. I do have a secret $50 tier for anybody who just wants to send a little extra donation, but cool. Love that. Okay, thanks guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much, and I'll see you next time.